So SP Elwin is the hot new thing at the moment. If you started doing all the quests as soon as he was available, he was already playable during the second weekend of Apex for Season 6. So anybody who was serious about climbing Apex was probably going to get SP Elwin. And I have both won and lost against SP Elwin. He is definitely a really good character, but he does have a number of weaknesses, not the least of which is his obvious weakness to anything that involves a Lancer soldier. Generally speaking, it's pretty rare to see Elwin being run with anything but his trusty new Unicorn soldiers. They're just too darn useful. They do magic damage, they allow him to run 4 blocks with his Reign of Glory skill, and most importantly, it allows him to ignore all the terrain, which is usually the biggest problem for cavalry units. All that being said, you can see this pick ban here, where both my opponent and I leave SP Elwin up until pretty late in the pick ban. Elwin's an interesting case, I think. He is someone who is viable as a first pick in certain situations, but a big problem on the ladder is that it's hard for you to really know if your opponent has something that will stop Elwin in his tracks or not. You don't know if your opponent is running Lancer Landius, you don't know how good their Lancer training is, and you don't know if they're running blood packs on their tanks, which really neuters a lot of what Elwin can do. On the other hand, if you're not really using Elwin to tank bust, but instead just to dispel a lot of buffs off their tank, the existence of Lancer soldiers or blood packs isn't as big a deal. But for situations like this, where both my opponent and I are playing pretty straightforward tank push games, you can see we're more concerned about banning threats that would be a threat to a slow game. For example, Yulia, Old Landius, or even the Assassins. Elwin can be pretty good at killing tanks, but obviously during the actual pick ban, we weren't able to see each other's classes, so we don't know if the opponent was using a Horsey or a Lancer Landius. In this case, I only really picked Elwin after I already knew a more straightforward team to work with, and in this case it's because I have 2 tanks, including Juggler, who of course will lock down tanks and allow your DPS of choice to run around killing all your opponent's DPS. In this kind of situation, Elwin could probably be replaced by just about anyone. Of course, Elwin is a very nice choice to have in this case just because of his long range and very high kill potential. But in any case, since we both have threats that we are each scared of on the other side, we're just going to be approaching each other pretty slowly here. So this right here is a pretty good start to a 1-2 combo from him. He got the Tenyo Breeze on Bozel earlier, so he runs in and does Earthquake on most of my team. Sure, Juggler is here to mitigate the damage a bit, but the big thing here of course is that he gets to put all kinds of stab debuffs on my Landius, and that allows him to follow up with Ares to make an attempt on a one-shot on Landius. Unfortunately, luck was not on his side and I get a Blood Shield activation. I also think this is another example of a player getting a little bit too impatient. I fall victim to this all the time as well. So he didn't move his Landius up forward first, which would have given his Ares a safe spot to run back to after attacking me. The issue of course in that case is that I could just jump in with Juggler and lock his Landius down. But he still has Bozel's Sleep in his pocket, so I don't think it's really that big of a concern. He's going to do exactly that in a minute anyway. So this was just a really risky move on his part that did not pay off, and he just loses Ares for pretty much no reason. And Deedlit comes in to beat up that Sky Archer really good. I mean, it's not the worst move to take care of the Sky Archer when you have a Bozel, but he does leave Deedlit out in the cold here as a result. So here of course is the Sleep from Bozel. It removes just about everything. It removes Beast Shock as well. So I run in to protect Juggler because Juggler is pretty terrible at tanking in my opinion. I mean, it really depends on how you build him, I guess. So even though he got rid of B-Shock, his team is just way too spread out. So I could just, again, Elwin here and just have him run around and kill people. And unfortunately for Florentia, since she still has the water debuff from the Juggler 3C, she cannot walk very far. So she can't get under Landius' guard either. And that Elwin kill on Deedlit is a pretty good demonstration of how strong he can be. His Unicorns aren't getting any bonuses there. Although, of course, he did dispel all of Deedlit's buffs, and Deedlit is an infantry, so there's a little chance that she would be able to survive against Elwin slamming into her. After that, he gives up the opportunity to guard his Florentia. At this point, I'm guessing it's because Big Bella is probably losing the mental game. I've been there. So yeah, just a first time showcase of me trying out SP Elwin. Definitely a really crazy character, although he does have some weaknesses, like I mentioned, which maybe I can show in a later video.